My name is Owen and I beat cancer. I was diagnosed as stage 4 terminal incurable cancer, and the doctors sent me home to get my affairs in order. And here I am today, 1 year cancer-free, living a very healthy and vibrant life with my kids and my family. I made this video to outline my journey into remission and lay out the most effective treatments that I did. I'm going to tell you why I did them, and I'm going to connect you to more information. I was able to beat it in 2 years, and I am extremely healthy and haven't seen an oncologist in at least 2.5 years. And so if you're watching this today and you're struggling with cancer, whether they gave you a bad prognosis or a semi-good one, you can beat cancer and you can do it without destroying your body. Before I begin, I just want to give all glory to the Lord. Because God is my rock and my redeemer. And I was a dedicated Christian father when I got my diagnosis. And I spent a lot of time, weeks, crying out to God, why did you let this happen to me? And I was sitting on my chair in that room right over there, depressed and angry, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna die. Why, God, did you do this to me? And God spoke to me in that moment through his spirit, and I believe what he said was, Owen, I need you to beat this so you can show others how to beat this. And guys, I can't explain it, but in that moment, I was motivated to get up and save my own life. And my head immediately began to fill up with like, nah, there's people beat cancer before, right? There's that guy that ate grass for a year and now he beat cancer, that hippie guy down the road. I knew that other people had beat cancer in that moment. It broke through all the depression, all the darkness, and it was like, wait a minute, other people have beat cancer. Why can't I be one of those people? And so I went to Amazon in this just fraction of a moment. I went to Amazon and I got a couple of cancer books, and in that purchase, that book purchase, my entire life was changed. I was introduced to a whole new community of cancer thrivers. These are people who have beat cancer, not just survived chemo, but actually beat cancer and didn't do chemo. And I began to follow that path. And that's my first thing I want everyone to hear in this video today is when you are going through this process and you want to beat cancer, you are going to have to learn a lot, and you are going to have to discern who you're learning from. I believe you should listen to survivors, and I believe that you should get multiple opinions. Now, there are 2 books that I think you should get right away. You should get The Metabolic Approach to Cancer by Dr. Nasha Winters, and you should get that in a physical form and keep it in your house and pass it on to your kids. This is a phenomenal work. It's easy to read that outlines what the 10 metabolic sort of approaches to cancer. And then I want you to get Radical Remission on audiobook. Radical Remission outlines a study by Dr. Kelly Turner where they examined 1,500 spontaneous cancer survivors throughout the world and what they did to eliminate their cancer. So this book is 10 audio chapters, and they're so inspirational and so informational. Dr. Kelly's a PhD, so I highly recommend getting those 2 books before you begin. Now, let's go into my treatments. I'm gonna outline for you 3 different levels of treatment: level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 1 treatments, I believe, are the 80%. It's the workhorse. Let's start with level 1 therapies. The most effective therapy for me was a radical diet change. I began to eat a keto vegan diet. That's a plant-based, no carbs, no sugar diet. I did not eat fruit. I did not eat candy. I did not eat breads. I adopted a keto vegan lifestyle. And radical diet change seems to be very consistent with no evidence of disease and remission and beating your cancer. Now, there's 2 big parts to this diet that I need you to consider, because even though every cancer has a little bit of nuance, cancers all react very similarly. And so I want to break those down into like 2 major categories. Number 1 is plant-based. So eating a plant-based diet will no doubt in my mind, there's absolutely nothing that you will convince me otherwise. The studies show it. Everybody that I know in the cancer surviving community is on a plant-based diet of some kind. Now, some people are doing plant-based keto, other people are doing plant-based like juicing. Both of these are incredibly valuable. I think that if you've got a stomach or digestive cancer, a juicing diet's going to be better for you, at least for the first few months to a year. However, if you're like me and you were dealing with hard tumors, the plant-based keto path was the best path for me. So I want you to investigate both of those options. Now, ketosis is eating in such a way where you're eating whole foods. There's definitely not a lot of keto snacks and vegan snacks, right? You're eating whole food from the perimeter of the grocery store, and you're gonna eat that until your cancer goes away. But you've also got to be testing your blood. The state of ketosis is where you have a low amount of glucose and a high amount of ketones. And when you equate those things together, you get a number called a GKI. You want your GKI to be 5 or lower, really 3 or lower. When you're in 3 or lower, your body is actively eating cancer and destroying it by itself. Now, I'm going to give you some resources on this because you need to understand keto. The first is get this book, Summary of a Metabolic Approach to Cancer, and this is literally a summary of his work in the book, A Metabolic Approach to Cancer, which is a big, thick medical book. I want you to get this book and read it. I also want you to listen to the podcast with Dr. Thomas Seyfried, which I put in the link in the description box of this video. He will outline what ketosis is and multiple experiments with human subjects where they are beating impossible odds with a keto-based diet. I also want you to get the book Keto for Cancer by Miriam Kalamian. This was an excellent book, and although I am not a meat-based keto eater, this book was really helpful in getting my pantry organized and understanding the science behind keto. And then finally, I want you to follow Ben Azadi at Metabolic Freedom. This is the man when it comes to day-to-day info on the ketogenic approach. Now, to measure your ketosis, you do need to get a Keto Mojo. So I recommend that you get that Keto Mojo. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna change your diet, you're gonna change your pantry, and you're gonna start checking your blood to make sure that you're in the right GKI. This is a process. I used to check my blood twice a day, even more sometimes when I was running tests, because I'm kind of a numbers geek. Like I kind of looked to say, oh, I ate spinach and it did this, and I ate mushrooms and it did that. And I made this keto vegan eating guide if you want to get that. This diet was hard at first, but as I made routines, it got easier and I began to thrive. I noticed results right away. So you do need to change your diet. You've got to eliminate meat and you've got to eliminate sugar at a massive level. You have got to increase nutrients from plants at a radical level. So get started on that first. Okay, let's talk about the next level 1 therapy, but first I gotta go check on the kids. These are my kiddos here. Hey guys, coming to check on you. You okay?
Yeah. Oh, it's wrong.
What would you say was the worst part about your dad having cancer?
The fact that I could not have a dad. Never did chemo.
Never. I love it. Beating cancer without chemo was not easier than going the chemo route. In fact, people think you're a little nuts and they question you all the time. But at the end of the day, I was 100% determined to stay alive for my kids. And that got me through everything. Okay, so let's talk about the next level 1 strategy, and that is fasting. Now, if you are not familiar about fasting for cancer, you need to do your research on this right now. Next to changing what I eat, not eating was the best, most effective thing you could ever do for cancer. I mean, when you know that cancer is a metabolic disease, it is not a genetic disease. It does not come from your genetic line. Genes play a role. I'm gonna get into that, but it is a metabolic disease. It is about how you process your energy. And when you have mitochondrial dysfunction, okay, this causes your cells to mutate, create deformities that turn into tumors and similar. Fasting triggers a process in your body called autophagy, where in the absence of food, your body starts to eat the fat and the dead cells inside your body. And that includes cancer cells. The studies surrounding people who have fasted to eliminate cancer are astounding. And the same is true for autoimmune disease and all sorts of other conditions that we've been told are hopeless. Fasting for cancer. I want you to look up some experts on this. Dr. Alan Goldhammer and the True North Health Clinic. Okay, I would say he is the leading cancer fasting authority in the world, and he's very accessible. I actually got to speak with him, and I wanted to go to his fasting clinic, but he was full, so I ended up going to a fasting clinic in Ohio with one of his students, or one of his, former students or whatever, and I had an amazing time. It was an amazing experience. I fasted for 7 days, and my cancer never grew again after that. In fact, my CT scans after that, because we did CT scans before, then I went, and then we did CT scans after. I told you I was a numbers guy. So, and we paid for that. Like, we wanted to see if this was gonna be something that would work. And we saw a major reduction. The doctor told me the doctor said, I can't even tell if these are metabolically active. Fasting is huge. Look up Dr. Alan Goldhammer and I'm gonna give you a fasting regime in just a second. Dr. Eric Berg is fantastic. I follow him on YouTube. If you Google cancer for fasting, you'll get a lot of his stuff come up. But here's some other names. Dr. Walter Longo, Dr. Fong. If you're a female, I want you to follow Dr. Mindy Pelz on YouTube and potentially Instagram. She is a fasting expert specifically for women. Not so much cancer. She understands the cancer side, but it's more about she serves women, and some women have cancer, and she can walk you through that and cycles and hormones and all the different things that are affected there. See, fasting is related to ketosis because not only does it trigger this process in your body that is actively eating away dead cells and cells that need to be repaired, all that stuff's just being eaten up because your body is eating dead cells and then expelling them. But when you're fasting, you're also in a high state of ketosis. So your diet and your fasting work together like a press pulse, okay? Now there's a lot of different ways to fast, and everybody kind of needs to go about this, in a customized fashion, in a way that's tailored to you. Like, I'm a thin guy, I've always been thin. Even when I got diagnosed, I was 180 pounds, which was big for me. I was big and chunky, you know what I mean? And now I'm probably like 145, 150, and I was all the way down to 135, maybe even 130. And yet never once did I feel weak. I was skinny, but I was strong and skinny. Okay, fasting is incredible. It's also cheap, it's easy, it's safe, it makes you stronger. No one's ever died from fasting. We're not talking about starvation. That's a different thing. It's a whole different process your body goes through, especially because during a fast you're hydrating and you're doing some things that most people don't know about. So you're gonna wanna know how to fast and get good at fasting. And let me give you sort of an idea of how I fasted. First of all, fasting during chemo will reduce, if not totally eliminate, your symptoms from chemo. I fasted the day before chemo, the day of chemo, and the day after chemo, and it all but eliminated my side effects. There were still some, don't get me wrong, and it was terrible. I did chemo, as I explained in the last video, I did chemo 3 times before I stopped and switched and just did it all this way. So fast during chemo, that's important. Start that now. 2 is intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is where you delay your meals. So typically you're going like 14 to 16 hours per night. There was actually a study done among women with breast cancer who did intermittent fasting only. It was 12 hours from like 8 p.m. to like, 10 a.m. the next day, whatever that time frame is, and 77% reduction in recurrence. Intermittent fasting is powerful. So you're taking a large break in between meals, and that has to do a lot with caloric restriction, right? Like you'll hear from Dr. Seyfried in some of the studies I've shared with you, is that cancer thrivers reduce calorie intake. So getting thinner is common for surviving cancer patients, but it's not cachexia, right? You're not wasting away. It's not a disease. And this is what people are gonna tell you. They're gonna be like, oh, fat, you're gonna starve yourself. That's not what we're talking about here. People have been fasting for millennia. And doctors especially, the medical community knows about this. So I would do intermittent fasting every day. And I was getting to like 16, 18 hours. I loved it. But right about that 18-hour mark, my brain is just all this and these ketones are in your brain, and I'm feeling good, and I'm feeling energetic, and I might even go for a walk or lift some simple weights. You know, you don't want to lift weights too much, but like get a good kind of heart rate going. And I would do that every day, and then I'd start to break my fast with a plant-based keto diet in the evening, right? I would stop eating at 8, and then I'd go another 16 to 18 hours. So I did that every day, except the weekends. I did one 24-hour fast every week. So from Sunday dinner to Monday dinner, I did a full 24-hour fast. This is called also OMAD, or 1 meal a day. And I loved it. I didn't think I could do it at first, but 24 hours ended up to be not even a thing. I mean, I was already doing 18 hours almost daily, and I got major symptom reduction in my first 90 days. I got immediate results, guys. The fasting and your eating routine will majorly impact your health and your side effects, right? It's like you got a long way to go to kill all that cancer, but you want to get rid of those symptoms, then start this right away. So 24-hour fast once a week, and then I would do one 3-day fast once a month. That started with chemo, but then as I kept going on, I stopped doing chemo, but I would still do 72 hours every month. And then I did 7 days per year. The first year I did a clinic. I went to a fasting clinic that I already talked about. The second year, last year, I rented an Airbnb and I did it by myself. And I had my pastor come in and pray over me and sing with me and watch movies. Like a lot of pastors, my friends came in. Okay, so with fasting, you do have to remember though, you don't just fast and then feast. You have to eat, it's called refeeding. And if you're gonna do an extended fast, I mean, even with intermittent fasting, you wanna make sure that that next meal is a gradual meal and it's full of nutrients to recharge your body. Your body just went through a major recycling process. So I'm gonna move over here because the sun's getting a little crazy. Okay, that's better. My face is not so hot here. So let's go into the third level 1 therapy, and that is the sauna. I can't tell you how much you will love the sauna, and I'm talking about an infrared sauna that you can go to a local gym or community center, or you can buy one on Amazon and sweat it all out. When you're eating more greens and plants and fruits, okay? There's processes that are happening that are detoxing you, right? They're grabbing, spinach is a big one. Like spinach grabs the bad cells and gets them into your system to push out, right? But if you don't sweat, you're not gonna optimally push that out. You want 15 to 25 minutes of a sweaty drip, and longer if you need to. Sometimes it takes me longer, but the infrared sauna specifically also has added heat benefits of stimulating natural killer cells, heat shock proteins. There's a ton of great benefits to the sauna. This is the sauna that we bought on Amazon. They shipped it right to our doorstep. My mom and dad came over. At this time I was so ill, I couldn't do much, but they helped me put it together. It took them a half an hour maybe to put this thing together. It has worked reliably every day since. My kids get in there with me, I get in there, and I have a special sauna routine that I go through that helps get my mind and body ready to heal. And I want to go through that with you right now. So when I get in the sauna, I'm usually going to spend about 35 to 45 minutes in there. Now, it might take me 15 minutes to start sweating, and that's okay. Sometimes I get frustrated, but you want to go in there with a big bottle of water, and if you can put a little lemon juice and salt in there, you'll love it. It won't break your fast, and it is plant-based keto, so you can drink that. It won't raise your blood sugar. And here's what I would do. First, I'll go on my phone, and I would go to YouTube, and I would look for like epic music, or I'd look for like cinematic music, and I would put that on in the background. And while that was playing, just softly, I would read my Bible. And I would take my notes for the day, right? And I would just kind of like have that alone time. I also have a glass door on my sauna, and so I got these dry erase markers where if I had a moment of inspiration, I would write on the wall, and I would write my affirmations on the wall, and I would remember that even on the dark days that my body beats cancer. In fact, for a season, I was journaling on my sauna wall about just like Tuesday felt good, Wednesday felt horrible. And what I would do is I would go back and I would look at where God brought me. Look at how far I've come. And then after I was done with that, you go upstairs, you shower it all off. You want to get the sweat off your body and not reabsorb back into your skin, because that's all the toxins. All right, let's keep going with our list of level 2 and level 3 therapies. Now, I'm going to go through these a little bit faster. I'm going to kind of like line item them, and I want you to take note of these because just because they're level 2 and level 3, I had to ask myself, if I'm going to go make a video that I expect people are going to watch, then I've got to be honest with them. I don't know what your situation is. And so I thought, like, if I only have this much time with a person, what would I tell them? And it's the level 1 strategies. Now, level 2 and level 3 definitely helped me, and I'm glad I did them. That being said, let's talk about my favorite level 2 therapy, which almost became level 1. I really debated it. And the reason, well, here's what it is. Hyperbaric oxygen chamber therapy. This is an oxygen tank, and this is actually in my office. You're looking at my oxygen tank. But your local chiropractor has this, your local integrative oncologist has this, and you can subscribe to it or whatever. You can pay like a monthly fee and get into the hyperbaric chamber. It is so valuable. What happens is this tank fills up, it pressurizes, you zip it up, it's got an astronaut style zipper. It pressurizes with oxygen. You put an oxygen tank on your face, and what you're doing is you are hypercharging your blood, your brain, your bones with oxygen. Why is that important? Because oxygen is fuel for life. Oxygen has all of these plus benefits that you would go nuts. You're like, am I allowed to be in a pressurized thing that long? Are you kidding me? 2 hours a day, 5 days a week is ideal. That would cost a lot. It's like 70 minutes is what it is. 70 minutes actually a day, 5 days a week is the ideal protocol. Now it's like impossible for any of us to do that, right? But you get in as many as you can. And I'll tell you this, after you start to get into the hyperbaric, you start to do this on a regular basis, you will start to feel lift every time you go in there. You're hypercharging your body, your blood, your brain, your body with oxygen, which is doing all sorts of great cellular regeneration stuff. But cancer cells hate oxygen. Why? Cancer cells, in fact, they're the opposite of healthy cells. Healthy cells love oxygen. Cancer cells mutate and they begin to ferment because they can't metabolize the oxygen. So what you're doing with the hyperbaric oxygen chamber therapy is you're going in there and you're lying down in there and you're sleeping for 60 minutes, 70 minutes. You're listening to a podcast. You're gently relaxing. Some hyperbaric chambers are even set up so that you could sit in them. My doctor, Dr. Jake, has got a couple of these in his office where you can actually sit in the hyperbaric chamber. Now, here's the reason I didn't put it as a level 1 strategy, because even though I loved it, and even though it has tremendous anti-cancer capabilities, I know that I got my results from diet, sauna, and fasting. I just know that I did. And in the beginning, I didn't use the H-bot a lot, right? In the beginning, it cost me money, so I could only go so many times. Here's the thing. When I understood what an H-bot does, it made more sense to buy one. And so we did. We went and bought one from Summit to Sea. They have great prices. They ship right to your house. And it is easy to put together, and it's easy to store. I got a pretty big one, but they have smaller ones, and your whole family can use it. My kids get in and out of it, and here's the thing. My kids start talking back. I go, you need to spend 30 minutes in the hyperbaric chamber because you're not getting enough blood in your brain. You think you can talk to your dad that way. So it's a great tool to have in your house. Next level 2 strategy is supplementation. Okay, 2 different categories here. Earlier, I mentioned that you may have a genetic mutation called MUTFR. You might also have a COMT mutation. These mutations make it hard for you to detox, to get bad stuff out of your body. Now, you can read all about this in a book called Dirty Genes by Dr. Ben Lynch. And this book is really easy to go through because it's almost like choose your own adventure. He kind of lays out the argument for epigenetics. And I want you to remember that term, epigenetics. This is when we say cancer is not genetic, here's what we're talking about. Your genes turn on and off, okay? And your environment and and some other things, toxins, help decide which genes get turned on and turn off. And we know now which ones we can affect and when. Ben Lynch covers that in his book, Dirty Genes, and you've got to read it. And then once you read it, you'll kind of jump at it. Like if you're this, if you know, to see if you're this, jump to this page. So you sort of take these tests, and he'll connect you to blood tests, but you'll take there was just a questionnaire, and I'm like, that's me. And my wife gave me the book, and she's like, I've been telling you to read this book, right? So Dirty Genes was key because here's the thing. I learned that I have a MUF4 mutation, so I need to supplement with B12. To this day, I have got a whole pack of B vitamins that I take to help my body detox, and I will probably take these the rest of my life. Supplementation should be strategic, and it should be customized. So the more you get to know your body, the more you'll know what supplements you need. In the beginning, I didn't know anything. So anything that was anti-cancer or anti-tumoral, I took it, and I recommend that you do the same. Massive action gets massive results. And over time, you'll start to kind of swap some of this out with food. It's like, oh, like I don't need shiitake, supplement. I can just buy shiitake mushrooms at the store. And there's balances. Like I used to take indole 3 carbinol, but then I just began to eat so much broccoli, like I didn't really need to take the indole 3 carbinol anymore. Or I preferred to get my indole 3 carbinol. There's only so much of a supplement your body can absorb. So if you're getting enough from food, then get it from food. But this is where supplementation plays a major role, because not everybody who beats cancer naturally supplements. But it was big for me, and there was 2 different categories. There's natural supplements, vitamins and stuff, but then I also had an off-label pharmaceutical drug protocol. And that's rare for me because I'm really not into chemicals and that sort of thing. But with my natural supplementation, what I'm doing is stuff like curcumin, hawthorn berry, alma berry, EGCG. I don't really like green tea, so I'm not gonna drink green tea, but EGCG, I'll take the supplement that kills cancer. So I had a whole list of those all natural supplements, and I would divide them up in times of the day. And I had a pill pack and everything, and I was literally like taking handfuls all the time. Now, my off-label protocol, this is from a book called How to Starve Cancer. And I would actually just skip the book and buy her course now. She's got a course that you can get, and it goes through the book. And that's kind of what we did, is we read the book, and then we sort of distilled what we needed to do. I was a part of Jane's Facebook group, and the results from that group are astounding. They made me believe. And so I really think that you should get her course and become a part of her community, because it is thriving. But there's a difference between natural supplements and what's called off-label drug protocols. So what these are, 4 pharmaceutical drugs that are used for one thing. They were made for one thing, but now they're being used for cancer. They're being repurposed for cancer. This is very common in the drug industry, but it consisted of 4 different lightweight pharmaceutical drugs. Like one was metformin, and one was atorvastatin, and then I took another one called fenbendazole or mebendazole. All of these I have listed out in detail in my Keto Vegan Guide. And so I know I'm giving you guys a lot of links and a lot of resources in the description box. Like I'm probably just going to put one link, and then you go to that, and all the links will be there. So just like scroll through and you'll see like all the resources. But you should get that, because I drew it out on an Excel sheet. I told you I like numbers, and then I taped it on my wall so I could see it every day. Now, the next level 2 therapy is nervous system regulation, the vagal nerve and vagal nerve toning. This is essentially your response, your fight or flight response. And look, I didn't know anything about this stuff when I started. I began my research, and I began to read these books, and like one person will mention it here, and then another person will mention it there, and then you'll go to a Bruce Lipton video, and then it's like, wait a minute, whoa. What we have to understand is that your body is one system with the brain and the spinal cord, and it's all working together. Your eyes see things that send messages to your brain of safety and fear, and you don't even mean to respond in certain ways. And adverse childhood experiences, physical trauma, these things dramatically relate to cancer and cancer growth. Now, I did not discover this until 6 months before I was cancer-free. And I believe that the therapy that I went through in my nervous system regulation therapies exponentially brought me where I needed to be. There are 2 big resources here. Number 1 is Braving the Storm by Megan Van Zyl. This is an incredible book, and she's so personal and intimate in this book. And she outlines her journey into nervous system regulation through her own traumas and through the traumas of cancer patients she worked with. And she began to work them into remission. I called Megan. I worked with Megan. And as I was on the phone with her, she kept bringing up people that no longer had cancer. Oh yeah, this girl, she's in remission now, and let me share with you her story. And oh, this guy, yeah, I remember when I met him, he was the first doctor that really talked about, like, let's get you into remission. The next resource is the ACE quiz, the ACE quiz. I want to encourage you to just go to the web and take that quiz today. This is a 10-question quiz, and how high you score on this quiz relates to your likelihood of having cancer. I took this test, and it asked me questions that I had tried to avoid for a long time. And when I came out as a 6 out of 10, I began to see how that made sense. And I began to look at the pathway out. It was almost like I had misdiagnosed myself. Like, I'm so focused on my body and the broccoli that I haven't really focused on, like, how do I even think about my body and think about my health and think about the world around me. And there's a lot more to it than this. So I want you to examine both those resources. And I want you to pay attention to 3 things, okay? Number 1, cold plunges. When you see people cold plunging on the web, they're mostly doing it to show off, but the cold plunge is essential for nervous system regulation. And essentially what it is, getting in cold water and being able to pace your breathing for about 11 minutes a week. The science is incredible. Cold plunge in your bath. You don't need a big old thing. I did cold plunging for a long time, and I stand by it. I'm glad I don't have to do it right now, but even when there's like times where I'm like, man, I should probably go take a cold bath. Wim Hof breathing or box breathing. You should learn different breathing techniques, and here's why. Because cancer is scary, and you're going to go to your doctor, and they're going to say scary things, and some doctors are even going to try and scare you. And here's the thing, you've got to get control of that. You've got to get control of your breath and learn how to manage that. This is nervous system regulation. That's what it is, okay? Your breath, your heart rate, how your spinal cord reacts, your vagal nerve, to all that. And then finally, I want you to pay attention to HRV. This number has changed the way that I view the world. HRV is your heart rate variable. It's the space in between your heartbeats. But really what it's measuring is your body's ability to go from fight or flight into rest and relax. And when you're in rest and relax mode, when you're in rest and digest, this is when your body's absorbing nutrients and digesting. And if you're in fight or flight while you're digesting food, you're leaving nutrients behind, okay? And your HRV helps you to monitor this. So I got the ring, the Aura ring, to start to measure my HRV, because I was on YouTube looking up cancer videos, and I found a guy named Dr. Harmon, Dr. Terry Harmon. Now, Dr. Terry Harmon speaks on the Truth About Cancer tour, and he was immediately impressive with his stage presence. And he began to show me that the HRV is a more reliable indicator of cancer survival than tumor reduction. And that is incredible to think, that it's not just reducing your tumors, it's actually creating an environment in your body where tumors cannot survive. That began to change my thinking, and I reached out to Dr. Harmon. He's now my doctor, and I would call him a friend. I think that he would call me a friend too. Like, he's a buddy, and we even talk on Facebook Messenger. Focusing on my nervous system regulation has been insanely valuable, and it's something you need to look into. Now, why did I put it all the way back here if it's so important? Well, again, it's like I didn't discover it until a year and a half into my journey. So I was already getting great results. I believe that my nervous system regulation therapies, meeting with Megan, working with Dr. Harmon, cold plunges, getting my heart rate together in order. And like, guys, most of this was like sleep and cold plunges and breathing techniques. I did a lot of this in the sauna. I did a lot of this in the hyperbaric chamber. It's about noticing when you're kind of going into your zone and then being able to step back from it, where you control your body's emotions, not the other way around. Here is a list of various nervous system regulation therapies that you could look into. Number 1 is cold plunging. Look into affirmations, sauna. Look into carb-free lifestyle, Wim Hof breathing, massage, journaling, therapy, grounding, walks, petting the dog, chiropractic. That is just a list of the various different therapies that you could engage in one at a time or all together. If you notice them, a lot of them are compactable. You can go into the sauna while you pet your dog and listen to music, right? There's a lot of that goes on. Let's get into level 3 graphics right now, but first I gotta go get some water and then we'll finish up. I'll show you my kitchen. I'll show you some of the things that we've done to organize in here. Like I said, I love to grow plants, and I'll even grow mints and green onions here so we can eat them. A little bit of lemon juice in there. You gotta love this kid mess. Jeez Louise. But I'll tell you, you start to get to this place where the old me would flip out, before I got my bagel nerve all toned up. And yeah, I want to keep a clean house, but ultimately I look at that and I'm grateful to be alive to see my kids' mess. Anyway, let's go over here. Okay, super excited about these guys right here. Those are my new plants. So let's talk about level 3 strategies. Now, why are they level 3? I felt like these were a little bit more luxury, and I can't really say that they moved the needle on any one thing. Were they valuable? I think most of them. I'll get into that. Others had really no noticeable effect, and so I didn't continue them very long. However, I'm mentioning them because there is data to support it, and they're not bad things. They're not bad things. So I want you to be aware of these. Okay, so the number one is intravenous vitamin C. I did an IVC drip where I got highly concentrated vitamin C pumped into my veins, and it took about 2 hours, and I did that once or twice a week. Now, why intravenous vitamin C? Vitamin C kills cancer and triggers a process called apoptosis. Okay, so apoptosis, it's cell death, right? Like cancer cells don't die. They're mutating and they're just growing, so they don't die. IVC, intravenous vitamin C, triggers the cell to die. It tricks the cell into dying, and that's important. You want that. It can also charge the immune system. I mean, think about how much vitamin C that is. I come off of my vitamin C drips feeling great. Plus, when you're getting the IV, you're sitting down, you're resting and digesting. Truly, I was resting a lot. I would work, and then I'd go to the doctor's office, and I'd sit on a drip for 2 hours, and I'd read, or I'd maybe bring an eye mask and sleep. And then DCA and MVA. Okay, so these were also IV drips, and I did them in combination with the IVC. So this is part of my integrative oncology plan, where I would be on a keto vegan diet, and then I would go to the doctor's office and do hyperbaric chamber for an hour, and then I would do an IVC drip. Okay, now DCA, this is a patented all-natural formula. DCA is dichloroacetate sodium, and it has been found to kill cancers by a newly discovered mechanism that appears to be common to several types of cancer. It works by turning on natural cell suicide, called apoptosis, by interfering with the cell's metabolism. There's no chemicals involved here. This is an all-natural interrupted process, and this was newly discovered. This is like a new thing. So DCA was one of the drips, and then poly-MVA, the other drip, it stands for minerals, vitamins, and alpha lipoic acids. And this is a darker bag that smells like vitamins, and again, you're gonna feel great after. You're gonna get charged up with all of this anti-cancer juice. So I liked the drips, but I don't necessarily think I could connect them to a major milestone mover. Now, I also did a light therapy with the Weber needle. This was a really interesting therapy where while I'm getting the IVs, this is all done at the same time, like I'm getting these IVs for an hour, I also had a light beam that would go into my blood, and it cleans the blood, and it's a fascinating technology. It's very well known in Europe, but my doctor had one, and I got to do that while I was there. Mistletoe injections. I did mistletoe injections. I would take mistletoe. It looks like this. It's in a syringe right here. And you've got a little vial of mistletoe, like legit mistletoe oil right here. And what you'll do is you crack this open, you inject the mistletoe into the needle, and then you pull a chunk on your belly and you pull it into a subcutaneous area, like a little chunky area. And what this does is tumor killer. again, it's kind of like a Hail Mary. It's kind of like, well, let's just do this, right? And I believe in that. I believe in massive action equals massive results. I got reactions, and it was cool, but it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, we have to invest in the therapies that we really think are going to move the needle. And so much. In fact, Dr. Nasha Winters wrote another book on the benefits of mistletoe therapy. So it's a real thing. Mistletoe is actually one of the most #1 recommended therapies in Europe. But I think there's a lot of nuances there. So look into that and be aware of that. Okay, 2 more, and one of them is marijuana. One of them is cannabis, so stick around. Cranial sacral. Cranial sacral therapy. I love it. I wish I could go all the time. Cranial sacral therapy is therapy for your skull and your skull fragments, right? Like your skull is in fragments and they kind of move around and they shift, and that sort of happens with your body and your spine too. So this is kind of like a branch of chiropractic. The cranial sacral therapy for my daughter, I cannot tell you, I see a switch in her when she gets cranial sacral therapy. And this is where the doctor's kind of adjusting the plates in your head, but it's also like a head massage. So you're sitting there in this dark room while this chiropractor is kind of just like massaging your head and moving things around. It's very slow and it's very peaceful. It's almost like a massage. So I love cranial sacral because it gives me 45 minutes of just sitting on a table while my head is being massaged. Ultimately, I'm adjusting my skull and relieving pressure on my nervous system. The last thing I want to talk about is Rick Simpson oil, cannabis, and marijuana. Look, I am not an anti-marijuana guy. In fact, I've been to a ton of legalize it rallies. You got to be careful who you say this to, right? Because, I am a freedom seeker. And so in my younger days, I certainly had a vibe for that way. And I still don't want to see the government regulating my life away. But is cannabis, is marijuana a needle mover in cancer, and especially Rick Simpson oil? I'm going to tell you my story, and that is this, is that I was going through chemotherapy and radiation, and it was devastating. And it was terrible. There's no doubt that chemotherapy and radiation is the worst pain I've ever gone through in my life. And one of my cancer friends had come up to me with a handful of RSO. She said, hey, you should try these. And it's like a little tablet that you swallow. It's like a little vegan capsule. And you actually have to get the oil and kind of squeeze it out into the capsule, or some people will put it on a cracker. That makes a huge mess, by the way, so I don't recommend it. But the Rick Simpson oil absolutely lifted me from where I was into a place of, I can do this. My appetite came back, and as my appetite came back, my energy got up. So absolutely valuable. What is the data that ingesting marijuana cannabis will reduce your cancers or stimulate a trigger in your body that will eliminate cancer or fix mitochondrial defects? There is no such thing, okay? When it comes down to it, I do think that cannabis, it makes the process more bearable. It's like an aspirin. Some people might drink a Coke to feel better at the end of the night. Other people, they might smoke a bowl. Others might get an edible. You know what I mean? And I think what happens is in like the pro-legalize it sort of like freedom movement, it blends with the science a little bit. And it's just like, we can be fine with cannabis and marijuana without saying, hey, it really doesn't affect your cancer. It will help you eat, I think, and I think it will help you feel better at times. But is it actually going to have the impact that a plant-based diet will have? No, not even close. Will it have even the impact that DCA or IVA will have, or IVC will have? No, absolutely not. But I think for a lot of people, you'll feel better. And I think that that's extremely valuable, and it shouldn't be discounted. So that's my opinion on that. Stop attacking me on Instagram. Now, I know this video was long, so I'm gonna let you go, but if you still feel like watching more videos, I want you to binge watch on my channel, starting with this video here about fasting, and just get into the science and the nature of fasting. Otherwise, watch this video again, go through the chapters, look at the links that I put, dive into survivors, and you will survive. Do what survivors do, and you'll be a survivor. Not just a survivor, but a cancer thriver. So watch that video about fasting, watch more of my channel. I'm Owen, and I'll see you next time.